Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Tuesday, November 28th, 2023. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. The family of a black Alabama man who was tased to death by Mobile police officers responding to a burglary in progress viewed the Bodycam video today. The attorney for the family of Jawan Dallas is here to describe what they saw when the officers killed this innocent black man. 8 Ohio police officers who fatally shot Jayland Walker have been cleared by internal police investigation, saying they did not violate any police policies. For those who say your vote does not matter, a Louisiana sheriff's race was decided by a single vote. Yes, one vote, and the black candidate was elected. He is the only black sheriff in the entire state. Also, hundreds joined former President Jimmy Carter in paying respects to his wife of 77 years, former First Lady Rosalynn Carter, including current and past presidents, former First Ladies, and Vice President Kamala Harris. We'll talk about that and more. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on Go Roll Roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
On July 1st, 36-year-old Jawan Dallas was tased to death by police officers in Mobile, Alabama. They mistook him for a burglary suspect. The body cam video has not been released publicly, but Jawan's family and the attorneys viewed the disturbing video today. Harry Daniels is representing the family. He joins us from Atlanta to describe what they saw in the video. Harry, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. First of all, let's just deal with this here. Okay, so describe for people what happened. How did they mistake Jawan for the actual burglar?
Well, Roland, that's very interesting, and thanks for having me on. It was a phone call, 911 call that was received of a possible burglary, home invasion. During that phone call, it was discovered that it was not a burglary or home invasion at all. It just was a matter of somebody being on another person's property. At best, the police responded to one location where the location where the burglary took place was down the road. And the location where Jawan Dallas was located was about at least about 1,000 yards away, if not more, 1,000 feet away, if not more. But anyway, the police en route, they saw Jawan Dallas, and they saw another person standing outside down the street away from the phone call of the original complaint where a particular burglary or a home invasion or a trespasser took place. The first person they saw was Jawan Dallas, another individual that accosted Jawan, and this other individual started questioning them. Jawan them tell them, we don't have anything to do with anything. We don't know anything. We have nothing to do with it. Eventually, they asked for IDs. One individual gave his ID. Jawan was in the process of giving his ID, but he was still being questioned about the potential burglary. So he was distracted at the same time trying to find his ID in the car and tell law enforcement he has nothing to do with anything. He don't know anything. He don't fit the description or anything. At some point, one of the officers tells Jawan, hey, get out the car. Okay? Jawan complies. He gets out the car. Once he gets out the car, he walks around the back of his car. He tries to take off running. At that time, he was tackled by one of the officers. Both officers engaged him during that struggle. Jawan was complaining that he could not breathe. He was punched several times by officers, and he was tased at minimum that we know 6 times. We heard the taser discharged over 13 times. Roland, it sounded like somebody was being electrocuted to death. And in this whole process, Jawan, he eventually put him in handcuffs. He's laying on his back. He's telling the officers, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I have asthma. Help me. Please help. In fact, during the altercation when he was being beaten by law enforcement, tased, you can hear him on the video crying out for help. Somebody help me. Help me. Bystanders saw this incident. They also made statements that the police did not have to tase or beat him like that. You can hear that on the video as well. Eventually, like I said, Jawan's placed in the handcuffs. He's begging for help. He told me he can't breathe. He has asthma. One of the officers telling him, shut the F up, or he's going to punch him in the stomach, or he's going to, multiple times. Jawan at some point tell them that he don't want to be like George Floyd. Eventually, another officer respond to the scene, a young black officer that was listening to Jawan and propped him up in a comfortable position so he could breathe. At some point, another supervising officer responded to the scene, told him roll over his back. When he rolled to his back, he continued to complain, I can't breathe, I can't catch my breath. Eventually, he was transported to a squad car where he continued to complain about unable to breathe. His chest hurt, he couldn't breathe. They were not, the ambulance responded. There was no sense of urgency or care for Jawan. They put a oxygen indicator on him to check his pulse and the oxygen intake. But he kept telling them over and over, I can't breathe, please help me, I'm dying, please help me. Eventually, he lost consciousness, and he never regained consciousness. They started chest compressions, and he died right there on that body camera.
I keep saying this repeatedly on this show. How traffic stops lead to black men dying. You mistake the guy wasn't even involved.
Roland, they didn't mistake him.
And what happened? What happened? And so here's sort of how this mentality is. Oh, he takes off running. But okay, you got his car. You know how to track him down.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It wasn't a mistake of identity as relates to him. The individuals who was crossing somebody's yard, the trespassers, alleged trespassers, they had ran in another direction. Jawan was telling them, hey, I saw some people running in that direction. So not only they knew he was not the one that was engaged in any trespassing, he identified, hey, this was the direction these people ran in. So, but they didn't believe him. You know, black man in South Alabama, you know, they didn't believe what he was telling them. During the investigation, they determined, obviously, that we already knew he had nothing to do with any trespass or burglary. The people who, in fact, made the phone call, they are the witnesses of this beating and tasing of Jawan Dallas. They were the ones who said you didn't have to do him like that. He had nothing to do with this. It wasn't him. But nevertheless, we have an innocent young man whose life cut down short, 2 children. Roland, you know, when I saw this video, you know, I've seen a lot of videos. You and I have covered. You've covered a lot of cases that we have, a lot of different cases. This is probably one of the worst I've seen. And I don't say that lightly because I done seen some bad stuff in this line of business, but it's one of the worst ones I've seen. And to compound that, this man is completely innocent. Innocent. No matter how you slice it, you killed a person who was engaging in being lawful, simply being a citizen, wrong place at the wrong time. And in the state of Alabama, he was not required to produce his identification. The statute is very clear. Even if he was suspected of committing a crime, and he was not suspected of committing a crime, the only thing he had to present was his name, address, and the purpose for why he was there. That's it. That's it. That's what law requires in Alabama. But no, that was not the case. They demanded his identification. Like you said, he was in a process, but they escalated the situation. The district attorney took a position and said he engaged. I told him that was a damn lie. We saw the entire video. It's one of the hardest videos that I had to watch as a lawyer with the family. You can imagine me as an attorney watching the video, and his mother and his father watching this video and seeing that child basically getting beaten and tased to death.
Another, again, innocent brother dead. And what's the state of those officers?
Well, immediately they was on. I think it was on administrative leave for about a week. They were cleared. I think, but I don't. It's still, to my understanding, still Department of Justice investigation going on. The district attorney submitted the case to the grand jury for possible indictment. Roland, that means nothing to me because at the end of the day, in the autopsy report, even though it says matter of death or cause of death was accidental, it says the contributory factors were law enforcement engagement. If law enforcement was unlawful, it's an unlawful engagement, and as a result, they contributed to his death, then you got an innocent man where they contributed to his death and they shouldn't have been charged. The DA wasn't trying to seek charge. He basically punted, gave it to some citizens with a whole bunch of things for them to try to consider and brought the people in to testify in the defense. Probably the officers, medical examiners who said the manner of death was accidental, but at the same time, even if that manner of death is accidental death and there was a designed purpose to kill him, you contributed to his death by your interaction that was unlawful. There's no way you can get around that. So, we've actually appealed to the main justice with the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, because we knew from the rip that this was going to be problematic in that region trying to get a manner of justice for this man. Jawan Dallas, I repeat to you, this video is right up there with George Floyd. The only difference is that you have an amateur in George Floyd who recorded it. Here in the state of Alabama, Alabama does not, body cameras are not considered public record. And the family was able to come see it because they just passed a law that went into effect on September 1st of this year. If that law was in effect, we would not ever seen it itself in litigation. But this video is one of the worst videos. If you come out, you see it, you'll never forget it. And I understand probably why they don't want to come out, because there'll probably be a lot of civil unrest in the Mobile, Alabama, and probably across the country as this video released. So our next step is filing a lawsuit, moving forward, working with the Department of Justice as best as we can to get some justice from this family, because it is horrific. Being myself, we actually have myself, Ben Crump, Lee Merritt, and John Burris. I don't want to call us a dream team, but we're pretty close to it because we are compelled in this case to do something, not just to try to get some type of monetary remedy, but change the region of what's happening to black people, black and brown people down there in southern Alabama and Mobile.
All right, Harry Daniels, we appreciate you. Keep us informed on this case.
Thanks, Roland. Have a good night.
Thanks a bunch, folks. Got to go to break. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
is John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, my panel for today is Joe Richardson, the civil rights attorney out of Los Angeles, Randy Bryant, DEI disruptor out of D.C., Jawan Walker, founder, Context Media out of Atlanta. Joe, we opened the show last night. Another case, traffic stop, black man end up dead. You look at this case right here, this is the thing that I think is hard for people to understand. That when we talk about police reform, when we talk about what didn't get done, when we talk about qualified immunity and the need to lift that. And we saw what happened last year when Senator Tim Scott, Senator Lindsey Graham didn't move on police reform in the Senate, passed the House, go through the Senate. They can't find 8 Republicans. But this is where I also say to external organizations where we can't give up the fight. This is where that pressure, that sustained pressure must continue to be there. And it is amazing to me that I hear people, and I get it, say they're frustrated that Biden-Harris didn't get it done. But a lot of folks have just sort of, all right, these things happen and we go back to business as usual. No, the only way you're going to get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to become law is there has to be sustained public pressure. Where did it go?
Well, you have to stay consistent, right? A lot of times our problem is we are often motivated to do something as it pertains to voting by a circumstance. But to sustain that motivation is a separate thing. We have to be reminded that so many people fought and bled and died for us to be able to vote at all. This is a situation where you talk about qualified immunity and the fact that basically only a change in consequences is going to lead to a change in culture. We're talking about police culture, and I think one of the first places that you can start is by dealing with circumstances. If someone really knew that they wouldn't have qualified immunity, I would bet dollars to donuts that many of them would think twice about what it is that they're doing. Then you start to knock on the door of changing culture. And yes, you have to keep pressure up and a sustained urgency, not just because, don't want to minimize it, you're talking about Donald Trump and the Constitution, or you're talking about voting rights, but because you have the right to vote and you have to continue to speak through your vote. It is a very difficult thing. I'm glad that they do have the family has the ability to see the tape. The attorney has the ability to see the tape. They'll have to bring their litigation and see what happens. And I hope that there is enough outcry with citizens that if this were to go to trial, the fear that it may go to trial and people may make an exception for their own rule would allow some measure of justice on the civil side. We'll see what happens on the criminal side.
Randy, I'm going to go back to the question I said to Joe. And again, I'm thinking back to the massive protests, Black Lives Matter protest, people taking to the streets all across the country. I'm thinking about what took place in the wake of the death of George Floyd. But I still ask, these things continue to happen. And where is the sustained public pressure that is needed? Because we do these stories. They're not on MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN. They're not covering these things. And it really takes a story like a Tyree Nichols that is just so beyond the norm for it really to become a national story.
I believe that we're tired. Roland. I mean, the sad thing is that we are fatigued and we can't get tired. I mean, it's easier said than done, because as Black people, like, we're running marathons. People are walking to work, and for us just to get out of bed and go to work and live a basic life, it's like running a marathon with bricks on our back. And so when we're having to pay attention so much just to get treated decently, for our loved ones to be able to stay alive, I believe that we just look down for a moment, or we sit down for a minute and put our bricks down for a minute. And I guess we cannot afford to, because this country doesn't allow us the break. But I do believe it's just we're exhausted.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and can we get rid of the whole concept of internal investigation? I know you didn't ask me that question, but I'm so sick of the police being able to police the police. It is. I mean, where else is that done? So the internal investigation crap just needs to be completely wiped out and illegal.
Tarun, I understand exhaustion. But what I also understand is that previous generations, 3, 5, 10, 15 years, they understood that you got to stay with it. And I just think that there are people who just, this was going to get done. Nothing, I say this, there is nothing that Black people have received in the history of this country that did not come as a result of struggle, of fighting, of resisting, of constant pressure being applied. And I don't see it.
Well, you also have to look at the context of the time that we're in right now. If you look back at the movements that started in the 50s and the 60s, if you're talking about the Deacons for Defense, if you're talking about the SCLC, all the way up to the Black Panthers, the Nation, and all of these different groups, there were people in each of those groups that had sustained capabilities to be able to go to mount an ongoing, sustained campaign of resistance and protest, and in some cases went on for years, in some cases decades. I think because we live in a time right now where we have access to social media and we also have access to information, that we think just talking online and just saying 1 or 2 things is enough, and that's all you need to do to feel like you're doing some real activist work. But the real work is on the ground, and it's deeper than just voting as well. You have to have sustained people who are dedicated to the cause that you're trying to push and to the agenda that you're trying to push, and they have to understand that that is a constant day in, day out thing. You know, you have to be bringing in people who are, when you're tired, bringing people and train people who can take your place when you get tired. And that's how you build coalitions, and that's how you build a movement, and that's how you sustain something else of just being online. Also, to the other sister's point, I think people are tired because we went through 4 years of seeing death after death after death after death. Almost every week there was a new Black male body laying in the street because of police violence. And you had a sustained movement of that for a certain amount of time, but you have to grow that, and you have to be sure that you have a coalition in place to make sure that you build on the outrage and you build on the momentum. And I don't think we have that right now.
Look, and I absolutely get that. But thank God, Joe, we had a generation that wasn't dismayed when they saw lynchings. That they do, you know what? I'm sure they were tired of it. I'm sure it was pain as well. I just think that we have to keep explaining to people that you can't just be, oh man, you know what? You know, we did it for a little bit. Look, I could very easily lead with some other stories. I could very easily do what a bunch of other people do. You know what? This is just too much. I don't really want that to be, you know, on the. I remember when I was at TV One, president of TV One, he was white, and he came to me, and he basically was like, you know, it's the same stories every day, and I was like, yep. What's the problem? And he wanted me to do this sort of explainer as to why we're doing these stories. And I said, Brad, I don't have to explain to black people why we're doing these stories. You're white. You need the explainer. And frankly, you're not my audience. So no, I'm not doing what you are telling me to do. And so he was just lamenting, and I was like, sure, Brad, when black people stop getting killed by cops, then I'll stop doing these stories. That is our reality. But I've had people, it's traumatic, it's porn, it's violence porn. I've heard all this sort of stuff. And my response is, so we should act like it didn't happen? So, I mean, I've got text messages from family members saying, hey, my child was killed in a prison in Texas and it's a cover-up. And I get the emails every single day. I just think that this generation is going to have to buck up and understand that if it takes pressure for a decade, that's what is needed. But we can't just, I'm just so tired, then I just give up.
We live in a microwave world now. Everybody likes what needs to happen, what they want to happen quickly. Their church quickly, their food quickly, their change quickly. All right. We're technologically advanced. We can get to voters and do things that we could never do. But the best contact with voters is what? Knocking on the door. It's still the best by far. This young generation, I think, needs strategy. If you look at the previous generations, there were a couple things. There was strategy, there was a moral component, and there was also a unifying theme. You might not have liked the brother next to you, but neither of you could eat here, neither of you could go to the bathroom here, and neither of you could stay here. Unifying theme. Boom. The Montgomery bus boycott choked people economically, choked the city economically, but also moved the hearts of people as well. And so one of the things that we need to be reminded of, church has that old song that said, I don't feel no ways tired. There's a suggestion there that the body can be tired. We have to do these things over and over again. We have to stay there. But even the Bible says tribulation worketh patience. And so we have to take ourselves out of this microwave mentality where we expect everything to be able to happen quicker. Some things are going to happen slower. You can look at the arc of history. Every time blacks make a significant advance, there is an incredible backlash. I think that's what's happening now. The Trump generation, et cetera, and all these other things. Other things are as well, but this is what's happening right now. And the only thing you can do is be patient and work it. It's not going to happen overnight. We 400 years into this thing. It's not going to happen overnight, but we have to stay at it.
Saw a video the other day. A prominent rapper was complaining, saying a lot of black people are disappointed that Biden didn't get a lot of stuff done. Got it. But I'm going to say this again that I need to explain to people. Where's also the massive public pressure? I mean, I spent over Thanksgiving, I saw on Netflix Rustin, Coleman Domingo playing Bayard Rustin. He gets fired because they want to lead a protest at the 1960 Democratic National Convention. Then you go 3 years later to the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Then we can go on and on and on. I think back to 1964 Atlantic City Democratic National Convention. I think back to even that, where the Mississippi Democratic Freedom Party, they were ticked off with King and Rustin because they did not get what they wanted. They felt that the deal that they negotiated was unsatisfactory, Randy. But then they made clear But in 68, there are not going to be any segregated delegations. They kept fighting. And so I just think that this generation, and I'm not speaking solely of millennials, Gen Z, I'm talking about baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, there has to be sustained action in order for people to understand that this fight is not over.
You're right. You are absolutely right. I don't think anybody can argue against what you're saying. I think what's missing now is, one, information. I mean, what makes this show, what makes you so needed is that you tell us the deal. We learn what's happening. There is no other station. I mean, CNN or any other show is going to be 24-hour coverage on Gaza. They are not talking about our brothers and sisters that are being shot in the streets and whom are fully innocent. When I talk to people about the things that we talk about on this show, they are fully ignorant about what's happening. So you deliver information and allow us to participate in this movement that nobody else really hears about. So that's one thing. I mean, because of integration and because of so many, choices of what people watch, they're not even getting what's happening in our community as they were in times of segregation, as they were when more of us were going to church, going to the same churches and living in the same neighborhoods. Secondly, I think a big difference is that we don't have leaders. So even when we say, oh, you know what, I do want to become involved and make a change, where do I go? To who do I contact? That really cares about what's happening in the Black community, not only when it's time to vote, but of all times. When I am outraged and upset, where do I go? I think the reason, Roland, why you are flooded with text and emails and phone calls is because you're one of the few people that people feel as if that they can go to. And that is part of the problem. Like, who will lead us to sustain this activity that we need to make real change?
One of the things that I remember in the wake of the death of Michael Brown, drunk John Crawford III, Eric Garner, and then the subsequent deaths to run. I kept reminding current activists. I kept saying, I know a lot of y'all shit on the NAACP and the Urban League, and you complain about them being slow, them being unresponsive. I said, but there's a difference between them and SNCC and CORE and even the Black Panthers. I said, they're still here. And one of the things that I remember telling 3 very high-profile young Black activists, I said, 1, do not get yourselves caught up in financial impropriety. That's the first way they come at you. I said, 2, I understand all of this, the niceties around decentralized leadership. I said, but the bottom line is, you're gonna need leadership. You're gonna need infrastructure. You're gonna need all the things to be able to sustain organizations over the long haul. And I really believe, to the point about, Randy's point about burnout to a run, is that there were so many people who were driven by the passion of the issue that they did not fully understand that you need the infrastructure in place, meeting payroll, allowing people to pay their bills, the fundraising component, the strategic organization, alliances needed for the long haul. So I think what we witnessed, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 years of this massive, this energy that existed, but it dissipates if you do not have an infrastructure to funnel people through. And I've said this, that the fundamental problem that Black Lives Matter, that the entity suffered from, is that they were trying to play catch up to a movement that was like a runaway train. And what they did not do is slow this thing down and say, let's build a proper infrastructure so this thing succeeds no matter who we choose to be at the top of the hierarchy. Because at the end of the day, you want to be around 10 years later. You don't want to be a flash in the pan.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, as you know, I covered some of those stories when the era of protest was going on. You know, I filed stories from Ferguson and from other places where these things are happening. And I saw some of the energy that was on the streets when you had all these young people. And some of these people, it was almost, if you look at the history of it, it was almost like a recurrence of the early civil rights movement. When you had like these very young people, you had, you know, college kids, you had high school kids, you had just random people who were out on the streets because they were sick and tired of being brutalized by white supremacy and the prison and the injustice system in every city they were in. What happened was you had a groundswell of people in every city. And I'm glad you brought it back to the Mike Brown situation. Mike Brown was sort of like the catalyst for it. But it goes even back to Trayvon, but Mike Brown was sort of the catalyst. And then going back to what I said earlier, where there was this period where like every week there was another young Black man who was dying at the hands of police. And every city you saw something happen, whether it was Baton Rouge, whether it was Minneapolis, whether it was other cities. And you saw these massive outpourings of people on the streets. And then when George Floyd happened, that was the catalyst that made that fight go around the world. There were people around the world who were horrified and outraged at what happened to that man's life and how it was taken from him. That was the time when that momentum could have been used to be channeled into actual infrastructure where we're saying, you could tell the world, this is what we've been fighting about for the last 4 to 5 years. This is the culmination of it, and now you can understand it. So now what we have to do is build a machine so we can take our anger and we can take our rage and we can take our frustration and move it into places where we're doing community work in every city, where we're doing actually legislative work, where we're speaking truth to power. If we have to march on the state capitals, if we have to march on city halls, if we have to march on police stations, that's what happened. And some of that happened, but what happened was a lot of that energy got dissipated, as you said, in those outward movements, and nothing was really built. There was a lot of infighting, there was a lot of frustration, there was a lot of backbiting going on behind the scenes that affected some of the movement that was going on the ground. And, you know, when I think about it, man, it's really heartbreaking because I tell people all the time, 2020 was the year where we had the ear of the world, almost like what you see what's going on with the Palestinians right now around the world, where they have the ear of the world and people are outraged at what's going on there. Black people had the ear of the world at the death of George Floyd, and that was dissipated because of backbiting, infighting, and a lack of infrastructure and a lack of forward thinking, and it's really sad. And to your point, you know, if you don't have an infrastructure that can build on the times when the people aren't outraged, when there's no outrage to capitalize on, you're going to fall by the wayside, and the media is going to get tired. The mainstream media has a very, very, very short attention span. They're on to the next story the minute something else happens. And if you don't capitalize on that and build on that and put it in different places, it's going to go to where we're dealing with right now, where you have a young man who's basically has his life snuffed out in Alabama. And if it wasn't for your show, nobody would hear about it. It's almost like what happened in the 1950s. Black men dying in small southern towns where nobody ever heard about it unless you weren't related to that man or you knew that man or was his friend. And this is where we are.
Hold on one second, because I want to come back to that and expand upon that, because I hope people who are listening understand that, again, when you start talking about successes, when you start talking about how do you achieve wins, there's an actual model there. There's an actual playbook that you have to operate from. And I just think that people are complaining about things that they want to see happen without understanding that it has to come through a certain way. So let me just unpack more of that when we come back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget to support us in what we do. And this is a perfect example. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. You cannot King understood this. Julian Bond understood it. John Lewis understood. They all understood it. You cannot achieve any of this without media. On that wall in my office, that salute to black-owned media. When you see on that wall, Chicago Defender, Pittsburgh Courier, Ebony, Jet Magazine, and on and on and on. That's how we were able to sustain it. So people complaining about, okay, you talk about social media. Guess what? Elon Musk owns Twitter. Y'all can scream black Twitter all y'all want to. You don't own it. You can scream all you want to about some reels on Instagram. Mark Zuckerberg owns that. If you do not own your media voice, then you will be asking somebody else for permission. And so support for this platform is critically important. And I can tell you, and this is not about ego, but when Harry Daniels and Ben Crump, all these lawyers, they know the stuff that we cover. That's why they hit us first. There are families who've said, no, we're going to do Roland Show first before anybody else. Y'all, I'm telling you, we are never going to be able to get what we need if we're asking somebody else, please, pretty please tell our story. So join our Bring the Funk fan club. There are people who have given us $1 up to $20,000. Every dollar is critically important. We are $230,000 behind where we were last year. And so we need to hit that over the next 30 some odd days. Send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Grow your business or career with Grow with Google's wide range of online courses, digital training, and tools. Gain in-demand job skills with flexible online training programs designed to put you on the fast track to jobs in high-growth fields. No experience is necessary. Learn at your own pace. Complete the online certificate program on your own terms. Stand out to employers, get on a path to in-demand jobs, and connect with top employers who are currently hiring. Take one professional career certificate program or all 6. Earn a Google Career Certificate to prepare for a job in a high-growth field like data analytics, project management, UX design, cybersecurity, and more. All professional career certificate programs must be completed by December 31st, 2024. Scan the QR code to complete the application. There are 1,000 scholarships available. Grow with Google and J. Hood and Associates. Be job ready and qualify for in-demand jobs.
Hey, what's up? It's Sammy Roman. Hey, it's John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
It's me, Sherry Shepherd, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. We have, you got elections that are always taking place. In fact, December 9th, there is a runoff in Houston for mayor. State Senator John Whitmire is running against Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Monday was the first day of early voting for that. And one of the things that Cliff Albright, Latasha Brown, co-founders of Black Voters Matter, they always tell us is that they do this work 365 days a week. It's just not during elections. And I think the same thing has to apply when you talk about public policy. I've said this here, Randy, that that groups should be, I believe, pressure should be applied right now. Republicans control the House. Why aren't these groups applying pressure to House Republicans, say, y'all pass the George Floyd Justice Act? Now, for people who don't understand, Democrats control the House. They passed it. It went over to the Senate. When you get a new Congress, you have to vote again. It's not like, oh, it passed the House 3 years ago and that thing is good. No, it has to happen within the same period in which that Congress is in session. And I think this should be an election year issue. I believe that advocates, I believe the families that have lost people, I believe they should be demanding that Republicans who control the House pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And if they don't even take it up, or if they do vote on it and they vote it down, then we have all of those people on record as to where they stand. So when it's time to go vote, then we can vote accordingly. I don't believe it should just be, well, when Democrats control the House and, well, we couldn't get it, so, okay, that's it. No, you keep going back to the well. I mean, I am thankful that Black people, when it came to the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act, didn't give up.
Yes. If I'm honest, I believe that we're scared. I believe that the way that just wanting Black lives to matter, the way that when we advocate for us, we are considered to be dangerous or, just somehow not politically welcoming, or we are tagged and we're scared of it. I believe that even this average person going to work every day, to advocate or to say that you're interested or concerned about what's happening in the Black community, that we just something as simple as Black Lives Matter, is that we are scared of what the blowback is. We saw how much people fought back against us just asking to stay alive and to be safe, just asking to be treated and protected by the people who are supposed to protect us. I mean, we saw what has happened. I mean, they have almost destroyed people's lives for just saying, excuse us, can we please have just the right to walk and drive and breathe and exist in this country and not be scared? And so if we don't feel as if the audience will be friendly towards us, or we have an audience that may actually go and support what we want, we back down a little bit. And not saying that people are not doing things, but I do think that we are somewhat afraid that I think Black people are almost groomed in this country to be afraid. I think that every time someone speaks up, whether it be, Kaepernick taking a knee, there is a public hanging of sorts that says, when you speak up for Black lives, now you could be an advocate for something else, but for Black lives, that there is a cost to it. It may be your job, it may be your reputation, but we are going to make you suffer.
Joe, again, I sort of, when I look at structured forces, when I look at, people talk about Black agenda, and then what folks, what are folks advocating for, and where's the pressure being applied? I'll be honest with you, from an organizational standpoint, I don't know. I'm telling you right now, I can't tell you right now what right now are the top 3 priorities of civil rights organization like the NAACP? I can't tell you. I can't tell you how people are being, what are people being mobilized and organized around? Like, what are we, I get Republicans control the House. I get Democrats have a slim majority in the Senate. And let's be real clear to the people, the Civics 101. Biden, unless it's an executive order, Biden can't do a damn thing unless it passes the House and the Senate. So if we're talking, so I think, so part of this, again, we talk about infrastructure and how you're using it. I'm curious to know from these national organizations, what exactly is, how are they marshaling the forces to stand behind what? I can't tell you what it is.
Right. And, you know, it could be any of a number of things that where I was getting ready to say it should be voting rights. It should be criminal justice reform. It should be, you know, there's, you know, a host of them that it could be. But yeah, I think that to your point, we need some clarity, not only in terms of creating infrastructure, right, but in terms of understanding where the existing infrastructure actually is and creating the energy and the urgency to keep us moving along. Again, you know, people get nervous. They see, oh my God, you know, Trump is beating Biden, but they'll always say Trump is beating Biden or this person is beating this person among likely voters. Well, who decides who the likely voters actually are? If you are actually bringing out people, educating them from the jump-go, as it were, and bringing them along, now you're going to have more voters. And I believe that the people that you educate can help give you and help facilitate that energy. Now, there absolutely needs to be infrastructure. I think we need to look at some of the models that have worked, look at what Stacey Abrams has done in our organization in Georgia, and really go state by state and area by area and actually create that infrastructure, continue to create that infrastructure, educate people early and often, remind them that not only should they get involved in elections and advocacy, et cetera, despite what they're going through, despite their struggles, and despite all of the pulls that they have on their time, attention, and energy, but because of them. We have to be very, very intentional about that. And you'll remember, you know, if you read the history books, if you read An Easy Burden by Andrew Young, you will see that there was a little resentment by the older organizations of the younger organizations. And if that gets everybody off the dime, that's fine. You know what I mean? You know, it's absolutely fine. Why? Because now everybody's on their JOB and we're moving forward and the people are saying, come together so that we can do and accomplish what it is that we need to have accomplished. But it takes this concerted effort and this energy, as well as people like you and us and all of us, to hold everyone's feet to the fire with that energy and with that urgency.
I just think that, again, from an organizational standpoint, and again, I'm sort of comparing to Run. I'm comparing how the major civil rights bills became law. That didn't just happen. I mean, that was work, there was planning involved. For me, I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing people complain. I'm seeing people say what we don't have. I guess, but what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for the coaches who are devising the game plan and then coming and giving it to the players to say, how are we gonna win on Sunday? And I'm sitting here right now going to the coaches, where y'all at? Because the game is getting played, but where y'all at?
You know what? You just hit the nail on the head on something that I've been thinking about for a long time. I can tell you where the coaches are. They're in their offices. They are at panels. They're at conferences. There are people that you know, and I know as well, who have been in some of these fights going back to the 80s, 70s, and some of our elders, the 60s, that are still here, you know, praise God. But two things are happening. I think a lot of people feel like, from that group, feel like they've done the work they need to do and they can sit up and rest. And there are also people who are younger who have a lot of fire and a lot of drive and they have a lot of passion, but there's no direction. And I can tell you just from seeing some of the things I've seen, there is very little cross-generational imparting of wisdom from OGs and people who are still alive, who are able to maybe form programs and put things in place for sustainability, and young people who have the physical energy and the drive and everything. A lot of them don't listen to each other. Some of them think, I'm smarter than everybody, I've done what I need to do, and let these young people figure it out. You have younger people who say, well, what they did didn't work, so I'm going to do it my way. But they don't understand that you have to have people who are sustainable and can build an infrastructure and who can do networking and can do everything. You know, marching in the street is one thing, and it has its place. It's a very important part of activism. But once you finish marching, you got to figure out where you're marching to and who do you sit down with when you're done marching and you have everybody's attention. You can march and yell and get everybody's attention, but what plan do you have when people in power are willing to come and sit down with you when that does happen? And a lot of times people miss the mark on that. And again, you know, I live in a city where you still have some of these people who are active in the civil rights movement who don't talk to people who are younger who may need their guidance, or they think that they don't need to listen to anybody because they're older, but you can't get anything moved. In our culture, we have a culture of elder worship, and we have a culture of elders that we go listen to who can give us some game to tell us what can we do, how can we move in going forward, how to get things done, and we don't have that. That's to come to people who are out here moving with no direction or moving the way they are, because the people who have that information don't impart it to them. And again, to be fair, a lot of the younger people don't know how to ask because they've never been shown.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. We come back, we'll talk this story out of Ohio. 8 officers involved in the shooting of Jayland Walker. Remember, 90 rounds were fired at him? They're walking scot-free. We'll discuss that and more right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Barnes, and this week on The Frequency, we talk about school to prison pipeline, book bans, and representing for women's rights. The group Moms Rising handles all of this. So join me in this conversation with my guest, Monifa Bendelli.
This is white backlash. This is white fear that happens every time Black people in the United States help to walk the United States forward towards what is written on the paper.
Right here on The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, have you ever had $1 million idea and wondered how to bring it to life? Well, it's all about turning problems into opportunities. On our next Get Wealthy, you'll learn of a woman who identified the overload bag syndrome, and now she's taking that money to the bank through global sales in major department stores.
And I was just struggling with 2 or 3 bags on the train. And I looked around on the train and I said, you know what? There are a lot of women that are carrying two or 3 bags.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Prouder.
Right now, I'm rolling with Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
The 8 Ohio police officers who shot more than 90 rounds at Jayland Walker have been cleared of any wrongdoing. Akron Police Department's internal investigation concluded that the police officers who shot and killed Jayland didn't violate police policies. Chief Steve Milet said in an executive summary that the facts and circumstances of the tragic shooting show that the officers had an objectively reasonable belief that Mr. Walker was armed and by his conduct presented an imminent risk of serious bodily injury or death to them and or their fellow officers. Walker was shot by police on June 27, 2022 after fleeing, first in his car and then on foot. He was unarmed as he ran away, but a state investigation found that he fired a gun out of his car window while fleeing. A gun was recovered in his car after he was shot and killed. A special grand jury declined to indict the officers for any criminal offenses. Jayland's family has filed a civil lawsuit. Folks, let's talk about Louisiana, where a sheriff's race in Louisiana is all the proof you need to know that your vote, one vote, does indeed count. Democrat Harry Whitehorn and Republican John Nicholson faced off in the November 18th runoff election. Results that night had Whitehorn receiving 21,621 votes, while Nicholson got 21,620. After Monday's recount, Whitehorn still remained victorious by a single vote, 21,624 to Nicholson's 21,623. Nicholson filed a lawsuit in Cato District Court to declare a victor or order a new runoff election. The petition is set to be heard on Thursday. I don't think there's any other way to run to show people elections matter. There are 63 sheriffs in Louisiana. 57 are white men. This brother here is the only black sheriff. He wins by one vote.
You know, that's got to be rough to lose by one vote. It's like something you see in a movie, or like Caddyshack with a ball gobble sitting on the top of the on the top of the hole before it rolls in. It'd probably be better to win by a couple hundred votes than just one. That's rough. But no, you know, I think that's part of the reason why there's such a rush to try to roll back voting rights, because they understand that it is a very powerful tool to be able to move policy that you want to see done. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, that's wild that I didn't even know that there was only one black sheriff in that whole state. But no, I think if you keep people from voting, if you keep people from exercising the power they have, if you keep people discouraged, this is the sort of thing that happens where you have people who may not want to go out and exercise their power. They may not want to. They may want to stay home because they feel discouraged. So I'm just glad to see that brother won, man, and I'm glad to see that it does show. It is a perfect example of the power that one person can have.
Indeed. And so for the people out there, Joe, who say, man, it don't matter, it does.
It absolutely does. And you have to really pay attention. I mean, you know, Louisiana is a whole lot more black than 1 out of 30. Okay. It's probably close to half black. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I think that there's this suggestion by the fact that you have so many white electeds, even in areas where there are a lot of non-white people, that somehow we are outnumbered. But the fact of the matter is, and this is something that they understand, those that, you know, are arguing just in the courts and trying to shake the courts and not so much the electorate, that they know that they're outnumbered in a lot of places already and getting ready to be outnumbered elsewhere. And so if we really understand this for what it is, and we vote en masse the way that we can with that urgency, you know, I want to understand what the secret sauce is, because this brother really got voters to come out. My sense is, including voters that would support him, because him winning this is suggested to be an unlikely scenario, but it doesn't have to be as unlikely as it has been if people understand that their vote counts. One vote made the difference. They did a recount. Each person got another 3 votes. He still wins by 1 vote. Everybody knows that their vote matters, and we have to quit accepting the suggestion that our votes don't matter just because we see who the electeds are. We can change that, and we actually have the demographics in order to change it, but they seem to know it better than we do.
We talk about this constantly, Randy, and I think back to, again, North Carolina, Sherry Beasley losing the state Supreme Court justice race by 400 some odd votes. Trayvon Martin's mother, Sabrina Fulton, when she ran for commissioner in Miami-Dade, she lost in the primary, I think it was about 350 some odd votes. And so every vote matters. So when people don't show up, this is how individuals are winning, and then we complain about policies, but when you vote, you're putting the people who you want in office.
Right. We cannot be discouraged to be ambivalent, right? We must not, I know sometimes, like I said earlier, it feels as if it's so arduous just to be Black in this country, but we cannot allow ourselves to become ambivalent and not participate in the process. As we keep saying, each vote does matter. And once we really ingest that and believe in that, we can continue to change the world for us.
Oh, well, again, so, hey, folks, if you need any other reasoning, brother won by one vote, a single vote. Folks, in New Mexico, Republicans are unhappy with the state's highest court for upholding the newest congressional map in September. 9th Judicial District Judge Fred Van Solen ruled that the redrawn map did not entrench the Democratic Party in power and did not violate the New Mexico Constitution. Monday, the 5 justices on the New Mexico Supreme Court affirmed Van Solen's ruling. The Republican Party of New Mexico argued that Van Solen made an error when he ruled that even though the new map substantially diluted Republican voters, that dilution was not egregious enough to entrench the Democratic Party in the state's 2nd congressional district, and therefore it is constitutional. This is the thing here that when I talk about battles that are going on, these battles are happening, Randy, in the courts. And so our legal groups, they are fighting it out. But this is where, again, you need your legal groups in the courts, but you need your other folks in the streets. All of these things work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to pay close attention because they are trying every way possible, as we see, we're talking about the Supreme Court, to ensure that this redlining continues and to ensure that our people don't get a fair chance at winning anything. Because by numbers, we would win so much if things were done fairly. They have decided to cheat. And that's just, there's no other way we can say it. And so we must ensure that our courts are and that goes by voting too, that our courts are in a position to be fair and when these decisions need to be made, and that we on the streets are ensuring that people are paying attention and that then we are showing up to vote when it's time.
Again, I call this civil warfare to run, and we're seeing it in New Mexico, we're seeing it in Georgia, in Alabama. We're seeing it all around the country because Republicans are banking on. They're banking if they can redraw these lines that guarantee them victory. I saw a story that said in Mississippi and Louisiana, where you had so-called competitive races, there was a 10-point gap between the Republicans winning and the Democrats losing. Basically, they have guaranteed themselves victories.
I say this a lot. Republicans, for all their faults and all the things that people may not like about the Republicans Party and their operatives are very, very good at ground game and long game. What we're seeing happening now, the rules and the things that we're dealing with were put in place in the 1980s. Ever since like the sister said earlier, anything that benefits the poor and the working class and Black people in general, the Republicans will put infrastructure in place to start trying to claw back everything that we gained legislatively. And if they can't do it through nefarious means, they'll do it through gerrymandering. They'll do it through assassinating the character of potential candidates, potential threats. They will pour money into campaigns and into PACs that will ensure that anything someone tries to gain for Black people gets pushed back to the point where they can't fill their war chest. These are the things that have to happen. And a lot of this stuff is done in silence. Going back to your point about the importance of having media to shed light on a lot of these things, because a lot of these things, like the race in Arizona, a lot of the things like the sheriff you just spoke about, these things happen on the quiet. They happen, and a lot of times people who are hard right, they bank on the fact that people don't have the time to be able to inform themselves about these things, and then they bank on the fact that they can put out a narrative that turns people away from even investigating these sorts of things. And these are the things that happen when you don't pay attention to things. Things can get taken out from under you. So these things have to have light shed on them, and we have to be vigilant about it.
All right, folks, hold on one second. We come back. You can always expect foolishness when Senator Ted Cruz and Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana are involved. Wait until we show y'all what happened when these fools tried to question the witness over guns and shootings. They got absolutely embarrassed. And I'm here for all of the pettiness. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table, with me, Greg Carr, working under the constant threat of violence. Nearly 50 bomb threats over dozens of HBCU campuses. In 2022, we'll talk to our HBCU Master Teacher Roundtable about the stress, the strain, the frustrating lack of answers, and real community-grounded solutions to the threat of violence we face at HBCUs today. Join us for the Black Table, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
Farquhar, executive producer, Proud Family. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Well, folks, during today's Judiciary Committee hearing to examine the gun violence epidemic, Texas Senator Ted Cruz decided to attack Democrats instead of staying on the topic of gun violence. Ooh, let's just say it got real interesting.
We are at yet another hearing called by Democrats on gun control. Understand that today's Democrats in the Senate, these are not your father's Democrats. There are no moderate Democrats left in Congress. Today's Democrats, when it comes to guns, their objective is to disarm law-abiding citizens. They simultaneously embrace policies that release violent criminals from jail. They're not interested in locking up murderers. They're not interested in locking up gangbangers. They're not interested in locking up violent criminals. Instead, they systematically support policies that release violent criminals. By the way, if you are hesitant to believe me when I say this, perhaps you'll believe the mayor of Dallas. The mayor of Dallas, Eric Johnson, who's a friend. He's a lifelong Democrat. He's African-American mayor, elected in Dallas, been a Democrat his whole life until just recently. He left the Democrat Party and became a Republican. Now, let me read you why Mayor Johnson became a Republican. Quote, "Unfortunately, many of our cities are in disarray. Mayors and other local elected officials have failed to make public safety a priority or to exercise fiscal restraint. Most of these local leaders are proud Democrats who view cities as laboratories for liberalism rather than as havens for opportunity and free enterprise. Too often, local tax dollars are spent on policies that exacerbate homelessness, coddle criminals, and make it harder for ordinary people to make a living. And too many local Democrats insist on virtue signaling, proposing half-baked government programs that aim to solve every single societal ill and on finding new ways to thumb their noses at Republicans at the state and federal level. I have to say to an ordinary person, the political ideology of today's Democrats makes no sense. Why your priority is disarming a law-abiding citizen but not going after the violent criminal. And to be clear, it is the radical left that advocates abolishing the police and defunding the police. And when I say there are no moderate Democrats left, the Biden administration has nominated not one, not two, but three of the leading advocates of abolishing the police to senior positions at the U.S. Department of Justice. Every single Democrat on this committee voted to confirm every single one of them, but not just on this committee. Every single Democrat in the United States Senate voted to confirm all three of the Biden nominees, including Rachel Rollins, nominated by the U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts, one of the leading advocates of abolishing the police, as a local prosecutor. She put out a list of violent crimes that she wouldn't prosecute. You know what? We're not having a hearing on the impact of Soros prosecutors releasing violent criminals from jail. We're not having a hearing on carjacking in Washington, D.C., because the Democrat City Council lowered the penalty for carjacking, lowered the penalty for murder. We're not having a hearing on Congressman Henry Cuellar, a Democrat from Texas, who was carjacked in Washington, D.C. at 9:30 at night. We're also not having a hearing on the Antifa and Black Lives Matter riots across the country, because to Democrats, when stores are being looted, when police cars are being firebombed, when police officers are being murdered, that's not a crisis if they agree with the ideology of the criminals. Instead, their objective is they want to take away the firearm from the single mom who's taking the subway home at night, who that is the only prevention she has against the violent criminals that the Democrats are unleashing. And by the way, to give you an underscoring of it, look, we have a mental health crisis in this country. I've repeatedly introduced legislation to improve school safety, to invest to double the number of police officers in schools. Democrats objected. To invest $15 billion in mental health counselors in schools. Democrats objected. Their priority is not stopping the criminals. Their priority is disarming law-abiding citizens. And by the way, they call it a public health crisis because they want to put supposed experts in charge of disarming you. The Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights is not a public health crisis. What is a public health crisis is the crime rates that are skyrocketing because Democrats keep letting murderers and violent criminals out of jail. But, Dr. Rainey, let me ask you a question in terms of public health. Right now today, what's the leading cause of death for Americans age 18 to 45?
I believe that it's opioids.
It is drug overdoses. Last year, more than 100,000 Americans died of drug overdoses. 70% of that came from Chinese fentanyl that is flooding across our southern border because this administration has opened up our southern border to 8.6 million illegal immigrants, has enriched the drug traffickers. Do you think, Dr. Rainey, that fentanyl flooding across our open border on the south that has killed collectively 100,000 overdoses last year. Do you think that's a public health crisis?
Absolutely. Synthetic fentanyl is a major crisis, and Senator Reid from my home state of Rhode Island has been a leader in trying to stop the supply of synthetic fentanyl.
Except he hasn't, because Senator Reid, along with every other Democrat, supports Joe Biden's open borders, because when we try to secure the borders, they block it over and over and over again. And the criminals who come across who are taking people's lives, that is because the Democrats refuse to enforce the law.
Yeah, wonka. But if you think that's a fool right there, wait till you hear this fool, Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, who tried to come after that witness, Megan Rainey. Roll it.
Let me ask you this. Why do you think that Chicago has become America's largest outdoor shooting range? Do you think it's because of Chicago citizens who have no criminal record, but who have lawfully a gun in their home for protection or perhaps for hunting? Or do you think it's because of a finite group of criminals who have rap sheets as long as King Kong's arm?
So Mississippi, Louisiana, and Missouri actually have higher firearm death rates. Obviously, there's certain...
What about Chicago?
So I don't live in Chicago. It's not my primary area of research.
You don't have an opinion on that?
I think there's easy access to firearms combined with environmental conditions, lack of great education. There have actually been studies showing that when you green vacant lots and repair abandoned buildings in urban neighborhoods, you see decreases in gunshots, in violence, as well as in stress and depression in the neighborhoods around them.
No disrespect, Doc, but that sounds a lot like word salad to me.
Yeah, because you're an idiot. That's why, with a fake-ass accent. Y'all know it's a fake-ass accent. He purposely wants to sound like a Southern hick. That's not how he talked when he was a Democrat. Yeah, seriously. What you heard right there was just perfect, Joe. Oh, let's focus on Chicago. She went, higher Mississippi, Louisiana, your state. What about Chicago? How about you focus on the state your punk ass from?
That's right. I mean, it's an interesting thing. You have folks in the southern states that talk about freedom and talk about opportunity and hands off and all of these other things. But the fact of the matter is, those states have some of the poorest outcomes. They have some of the poorest educational outcomes. They're some of the poorest states. Those of us in California and other liberal states tend to pay a lot for them, more than they pay for us, as it were. And yes, as it turns out, there is a lot more in terms of free-wielding, gun possession, gun violence, and all of these other things that are going on in ways that they want to overlook. You either have Ted Cruz, somebody who's technically intelligent but doesn't have a whole lot of common sense and wants to steer the discussion into having something else, or you've got, John Kennedy and Tommy Tuberville, who, I'm not always sure that they can actually spell their names. They're actually not very smart at all. And so the fact of the matter is, you have to, separate the wheat from the chaff a bit here. This slow drawl or this fast intellect, Harvard educated, but no common sense. Racist tendencies, ignoring dealing with the immigration problem, where a whole lot of people that are coming to this country because it's a shining city on the hill, people that look like Ted Cruz and John Kennedy employ all the time, which is why they keep coming. You have to either create a pathway or figure out what's going on. You cannot put everybody in jail. You can put everybody in jail and win elections, but you're not going to put everybody in jail and solve problems, particularly when a lot of the folks that you put in jail, you put in jail for nonviolent offenses, or you put in jail because they're people of color, more likely to be put in jail, to be in those situations because they don't have the resources. So once again, it's them talking out of each side of their mouths and not doing what it is that they need to do.
They sit here and just run their mouth, but they love talking about Chicago, Randy, but he don't want to talk about New Orleans.
Oh, yeah, he ain't trying to talk about that. I mean, really, it's just, to me, such racist rhetoric. And anyone who, I mean, they don't even try to hide it. It's so disgusting. They always want to talk about Chicago. And it's always, they want to me, act as if Black people are the ones who are, are the problems with the guns, and that, everybody, these white women, to me, is the way it sounds, are coming home and trying to just be home safely and protect themselves. I mean, they never want to mention, who's doing the most mass murders and things like that. I mean, just clear-cut racism, in my opinion. And the way, and then even with the opioid epidemic, it's not because the pharmaceutical companies that they very much are funded by are the issue. It's coming over from China. And that's the issue. Like, there is no responsibility whatsoever. There's like these good old boy Americans who want to not take accountability for any issues whatsoever. And they want to steer everyone away from actually doing the research and finding out what's going on, particularly in their states. And just, it's like the Fox News, just focus on the headlines that are wrong. The same story over and over again. They make me sick. I can't believe that Cruz isn't in Mexico. Like, he usually runs away when there's something important to talk about.
Bottom line here, Torun, is this is the game that they play. And this is where, with witnesses, you got to sit here and say, yep, we're going to bring up your state. We're going to bring up cities in your state. And so, again, this is the game they love to play. And this is no different than when I decimated and destroyed Philip from Indianapolis. And really, he was from a suburb in Indianapolis. When he kept bringing up Chicago, I was like, but you can't focus on Indianapolis. Bottom line is, when they say Chicago, that's their new N-word. Chicago is their new N-word.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? That hearing wasn't even about trying to get to the bottom of a crisis or getting to real information. Cruz and Senator Kennedy were playing to their base. That's stuff that's what they were doing, was putting together as talking points and sound bites and fodder that they can take back to their constituents and say, see, I'm fighting for you. Now, when I say I'm fighting for you, I don't mean you brown people and you Black people. I mean you scared people who are nervous about these boogeymen coming over the border. That's really all I heard over the whole conversation from both of them. It's basically setting up a scenario where you had this image of the scared white woman on the train, like from Death Wish or something like that, scared of these Black people and these brown men that are to come and take advantage of her, a violator. That's what that's about. It's about scaring the hell out of the people who listen to you. And we have to be honest, though, even though it sounds ridiculous, there is a very large base of people who swallow that rhetoric and believe in it. And I can't believe the other guy I'm not really familiar with, but he sounds like Foghorn Leghorn, or the white man that was on In the Heat of the Night. Not the sheriff, but the one that Sidney Poitier had to deal with on the movie when he slapped him and stuff like that. It's like, Mr. Endicott, he sounded like that. I'm like, and you saying that's a fake accent, why are you even talking like that? You would only do that if you're trying to present yourself like this hardcore Southern sheriff like Bull Connor that's going to swoop in and save all the flower of white womanhood from these boogeyman Black people that are coming in. That wasn't about trying to get to the bottom of anything. It wasn't even about a hearing. It was about trying to embarrass the people on that panel and wasting their time and making yourself look like the defender of the flower of white womanhood, like we're in the Deep South.
And again, just so people think I'm not joking, the dude is fake. Remember, Gary Chambers ran against him for the United States Senate, and Gary actually featured this fool in an ad that showcased what he actually sounded like. And I'm trying to pull this up now. And I remember when we ran it, because people thought, okay, surely you're joking. But no, Senator John Kennedy used to be a Democrat. He used to be a Democrat. And I'm having some issues here. I'm trying to see if I can pull it up. Used to be a Democrat, y'all. And when he was a Democrat, he also went to Harvard, so he loves talking about elites and stuff along those lines. But what's interesting is that when he talks about elites, all right, so listen to this. Watch this, y'all. Listen to this.
Will not let you down. I'd rather drink weed killer.
Oh, And by the way, now he's good buddies with this guy. John Kennedy inspires people like this and has now raised $15 million to keep ruining Louisiana. We need to build a grassroots movement to defeat John Kennedy and build the margins of the Democratic Party in the U.S. Senate. Chip in today. We're a long way from 15 million, but people power can catch up. Let's go to work.
Avocado toast eating insiders elite.
Y'all, he was sitting here. Okay, so hold on. I'm gonna try to run it back. So let's see if I can play this again. Because I cracked up laughing when I saw the ad. Let's see here. I don't know why it's jumping on me. Let's see if I can restart it, because I was just, like I say, it cracks me up every time I even hear it. Go to it now.
And this is my opponent, John Kennedy. He used to be a Democrat that talked like this.
Well, we have another program here at Treasury that we're very proud of.
But then he became a Republican, switched accents, and now he talks like this.
I will not let you down. I'd rather drink weed killer.
Oh.
The dude's a fraud. He's an absolute fraud.
You know what that sounds like? You know when George Wallace first ran in was it Alabama? It was Alabama, right? George Wallace, when he first ran, he ran on a sort of progressive platform, and he didn't win. And I'm not going to say what he said, but he said after he lost that first battle, he said, I'm not gonna be out N-worded again. And that's when he turned into the George Wallace that we know.
Hold on, I'm gonna play one more. I'm gonna try to see. Let's see. Listen to this.
Future decision or what?
Well, Arthur, we've been friends a long time, and I think you know the answer to that question. I'm a Democrat. I support Senator Kerry. I have endorsed Senator Kerry, as you have, as Chris has. He's the nominee of our party.
Now you notice how all of a sudden he was trying to move to the dog. You don't talk like that. Go ahead.
Nah, man, it sounded like like I said, man, it's almost like the situation with George Wallace. George Wallace didn't start out going segregation now and segregation tomorrow. George Wallace was actually a fairly educated man, but he found out what his base wanted, and that's what he did. And I'm assuming that's what this guy's doing. He sounds like a charlatan and an imposter, but I've heard of people changing hair color over time, but I've never heard anybody changing accents. He must have met Sunshine or something. I don't know what's going on with him.
Hey, all this is how can he appeal to the country bumpkins by suggesting that I said it's a fake accent. When you're faking your accent, Randy, you're a fraud. And Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana is an absolute fraud.
Yeah, these good old boys that are actually multimillionaires came from a long legacy of money and higher education. How they switch from being these elite men to all of a sudden sounding like, remember Boss Hogg from Dukes of Hazzard back in the day? That's to me who he's trying to cosplay. I mean, it's sad. It's absolutely sad. And people who are intelligent would be offended.
Joe, I really get a kick out of this fool with his little fake accent.
Yeah, I mean, and it seems like to me that folks would appreciate someone that's real wherever you are. For me, my thing is just don't be fake. If you're somebody I disagree with, just give it to me like it is, and then at least I'll trust you. See, there's people with integrity that I don't agree with. Okay. Right. You can be truthful. You can be true to yourself. You can be a person whose word can be counted on, even if I don't agree with you. But once you become fake, now I can't even take you at your word. You're going to change with the weather, but then again, you look around, fake seems to be in right now. Hello.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Trust me. If y'all go to YouTube, and he is down for some of the dumbest viral moments in the United States Senate, and that's a lot of competition when you got Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, and that idiot Ted Cruz of Texas. I mean, that's like a lot of competition. All right, y'all, hold tight 1 second. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, join the Bring the Fuck fan club. Senior checking money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Be sure to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available bookstores nationwide. We'll be right back.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, Dave.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Sherry Shepard with Sammy Roman.
I'm Dr. Robin B., pharmacist and fitness coach, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Bobby LaRon Pipkin was last seen leaving a family member's birthday party in Wilmington, Delaware on November 25th. The 42-year-old is 6 feet 4 inches tall, weighs 190 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. He was wearing black jeans, a black shirt with a Simpson character, a black hat, black glasses, and a chain that says Genius, G-E-N-Y-U-S. Bobby has a scar above his left eye and a dent by his left eye that looks like a teardrop. He has several tattoos, a microphone on his arm, the name Change, and Elijah on his arms, Janet, the K of Heart, and Fearless King on his hands. Bobby was driving a black 2021 Mitsubishi Outlander Sport, license plate number LJY4214, which is also missing. Anyone with information about Bobby LaRon Pipkin is urged to call the Wilmington Police Department at 302-654-5151, 302-654-5151. All right, the former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, who was convicted in the 2020 murder of George Floyd, was stabbed in a federal prison in Arizona. The Office of the Minnesota Attorney General confirms Chauvin is listed in stable condition. He was attacked on Friday at the Federal Correctional Institute in Tucson, Arizona, a medium security prison that, according to reports, has been plagued by security lapses and staffing shortages. Chauvin is serving 22.5 years in prison for second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter for the May 25, 2020 killing of Floyd. So, Randy, what you having for dinner?
That's what I wanted to say. Like, I was trying to send a thought and a prayer, and I realized I was all out. So, yeah. Ooh, and you know, yeah.
Yeah, hey, you better get back to work and do that time. That's what's up. That's what's going on. Keep your guards up. You only got 22 more to do. You're gonna do 85%. You in Fed. This is Fed time, bro. This is Fed time. That's what Tupac used to say. It's time to do Fed time. Won't see parole. Imagine life as a conflict. It's getting old. Don't get me quoting Tupac, but in any event. What you having for dinner? Grits and sugar. Sugar on your grits still rolling.
Hell yeah.
It's sad.
Absolutely. I don't give a damn what y'all think.
You do sugar on grits, man?
You damn Skippy.
Doesn't it make you just look at them differently?
Any of y'all paying for them?
No, because I put butter and salt on mine. Like
not now one of y'all paying for my food, so I don't give a damn what y'all think. I don't care.
Roland is very adamant about this issue, for sure.
I don't know. Actually, I don't even think about it. I do not care.
Man, that's that up north stuff, man. Down south people grits.
I think I did actually treat to lunch that day that I paid for the sugar and grits.
Didn't care then.
Now, I put some sugar on my minute rice, butter, sugar, and milk. I'll do that.
Right.
Both y'all just admit y'all country as hell.
Oh, yeah, as a Nick-home sandwich. Mm-hmm.
Oatmeal with some sugar on it. This time of year when it's cold, that's it right there. But not
if you're gonna do oatmeal, use brown sugar.
True.
Agreed.
True.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. And I still don't give a damn what y'all think. I give zero. I give the same thought about y'all opinion about me putting sugar on grits as I do about Derek Chauvin being stabbed in prison.
So we're not gonna put a fund together for him to get him some protection or something?
No. Like in boxing, protect yourself at all costs till the bell rings.
Right, that's it.
And his bell's gonna ring in about 20 years.
Yeah, he got 21 and a half more. Hey,
I don't care.
Get on back to work.
I literally do not care about Derek Chauvin. And if you hadn't killed George Floyd, your ass wouldn't be in prison. So,
well, he would be in prison for 1 year because he did get charged with tax evasion too. This good citizen that people tried to make him to be. He did get a year for tax evasion, major tax evasion. His wife, I think, had to do it.
What's appalling now is that if he lives, he's got a date. He'll actually get out one day. That's what's cold about it. It's going to be a hell of a 21 years, no question about that. But if he makes it, he actually has a date. He actually is going to get out.
I don't know what to say, man. All I can say is just invest in cigarettes. That's the only thing I can tell you, and just keep your guard up. Best of luck.
Sure, yeah.
Y'all still talking about him?
No, I'm through.
Got you. All right. I don't really care. And you're damn right. Sugar on my grits. Folks, hundreds attended the memorial service to former First Lady Rosalynn Carter today in Atlanta. Former Presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and all 5 living and current former First Ladies, Joe Biden, Michelle Obama, Laura Bush, Hillary Clinton, and that Trump woman, were seated at the front of the Glen Memorial United Methodist Church on the Emory University campus. Pastor Tony Loughton delivered some brief remarks thanking the Secret Service and also talked about the former First Lady.
Maya Angelou wrote, "When great trees falls. When great trees falls, rocks on a distant hill shudder, and lions hunker down in tall grasses, and elephants lumber after safety. When great trees falls in the forest, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us become light, rare, and sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes are filled with hurtful clarity, and our memory suddenly sharpens, examines the words unsaid and promises of walks never taken. But did you know that in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 28 says, Do you not know, and have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives us strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. And even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. Here's where I shout and get happy. Chip, it says, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not go weary. They will walk and not faint. You've heard everything about this great soul. You heard that she was from Plains, Georgia. You heard the fact that she loved and she had compassion, even for a butterfly. You heard the fact how she loved her grandchildren, and oh, how she loved JC, Jimmy Carter. But I also have to tell you that she loved JC, Jesus Christ. And I believe the reason why she did so much of the things she did, because she read in Spanish and English that faith without works is dead being alone. So when she read the word of God, it went to her head, and then it got in her heart. And somewhere in the kingdom of God, Ambassador Young, she decided to put her hands to the things of God. From her head to her heart to her hands. But Mr. President, she made it a habit. From her head to her heart to her hands, and she made it a habit. If you love our First Lady, who is global, make it a habit. Take your passion and make it a habit. Link your passion up with compassion, and then there will be peace, and then there will be love. And then we'll have a house united, not divided. She would say thank you to all the first ladies that came and stopped all the traffic in Georgia and Atlanta. Mr. President, she say thank you from the time you came down to visit President Jimmy Carter and sat in the living room, you and your beautiful bride. She would say thanks to all of you. Governor, she said, she would say thank you. But I want to tell you something. To all the staff, she would say thank you. But there's somebody in here that's very important, and only them are going to get what I'm about to say. There's some folks that make all this possible. Their sole mission is to make sure you get home safe. For 46 years, men and women of the Secret Service has made sure that she got home safe. For 46 years, they left their families and traveled with Rosalynn to make sure, Garth, that she got home safe. For 46 years, they gave themselves. Jason, they had ice cream, peanut butter ice cream. They did all the things that she did. For 46 years, they made sure she got home safe. I want to tell each and every one of them, she would tell you, thank you. You got me home safe. Oftentimes, Mr. President, we don't acknowledge those who keep us safe. Rosalynn Carter's in heaven, and she did the work of the Lord in the kingdom all around the world. And Don and all the directors for 46 years got her and her family home safe. And I say thank each and every one of you, those that are standing post and those that are listening on the radios right now. Thank you. And she loves you, and ain't nothing you can do about it.
All right, I must say probably one of the funniest moments of the funeral was when the Carter's grandson got up and spoke. Y'all check this out.
Thank you all. And again, a special thank you, Secretary Clinton, Mrs. Bush, Mrs. Obama, Mrs. Trump, and Dr. Biden. Thank you all for coming and acknowledging this remarkable sisterhood that you share with my grandmother. And thank you all for your leadership that you provided for our country and the world. Secretary Clinton and Dr. Biden, we also welcome your lovely husbands.
That was pretty funny. Of course, President Bill Clinton, President Joe Biden there, Presidents Obama, George W. Bush, and that fool, they were not there at the funeral, but the First Lady was there. Like I said, Vice President Kamala Harris and Second Gentleman Doug were there as well. One of the things that was interesting listening to the speakers at the funeral, Randy, was how significant Rosalynn Carter was as an advisor to her husband, sitting in on cabinet meetings, and was a major, major force when it came to confronting mental health in this country, an issue that people did not want to deal with in the 70s. And remember, you had a candidate who was running for president in 1972, who, when the Nixon folks broke into the offices and discovered his therapist records, that was not something that was, people looked down upon that in this country. She centered the issue of mental health in America.
Yeah, I was thinking about, going back to our earlier conversation about people being disingenuous with who they are and trying to be something that they're not. And the Carters have always been the absolute opposite of that, and, have been their true Southern selves, but also at the same time been pioneers in pushing us through to deal with topics that weren't discussed before. I think she was genuinely a first lady that people will forever hold in high regard.
Again here, I think, Joe, what was just so interesting is that it was Rosalynn Carter who proposed to President Carter that he hold the talks between Israel and Egypt at Camp David. She was someone who he listened to, who gave him advice. One of the things that one of the speakers said, one of the things that she said was, I think it was Judy Woodruff, the journalist, who said that Carter's deal, when she answered, why does she sit in a cabinet meeting? She said, I can't give Jimmy the advice he needs if I don't have all of the information. And this is that's huge when you have people in this country who are like first ladies, shut up, be quiet, no one elected you, you have nothing to say, without realizing that first ladies, kind of important advisors to presidents. Toran, if you're gonna take that one.
No, I think that's a very important point because, and I also think it speaks to the point that this idea that the person who you actually marry and the person that you share your life with is somebody that I think it's a ridiculous thing to say that even in just simple things that you do in your own house, to say that somebody who doesn't have the power of being the leader of the free world is not supposed to take advice from the person who spends the most time with them. And I also think it speaks to this idea that first ladies are supposed to be window dressing, and they're not supposed to have any sort of life outside of just being showpieces for their husbands. But you can't function in society with a wife who doesn't have any sort of input in your life. And you definitely can't function as a politician if you have somebody who's inert and doesn't have her own point of view and doesn't have her own ideas to be able to bring to the table. That's just common sense. And I think it's an amazing thing. And I also know, being someone who lives in Georgia, I know the work that the Carters have done, for the last 40 years outside of public office, the things that they put work into. And I know his wife was a very big part of that. So I think it's a very beautiful thing that this is being told now.
Indeed. And so certainly Rosalynn Carter being laid to rest there in Georgia. It'll be happening at their home in Plains, Georgia. Also, folks, another loss, soul singer and New Orleans native Jean Knight, best known for her 1971 hit, Mr. Big Stuff, is now an ancestor. The family released a statement saying she passed away on Wednesday. The Louisiana Music Hall of Fame inductee released her first song, a cover of Jackie Wilson's song Stop Dogging Me Around, in 1965. Her success climbed in 1971 with the release of Mr. Big Stuff, which landed her a deal with Stax Records. The hit sold more than 1 million copies and earned her a Grammy Award nomination in 1972 for Best Female R&B Vocal Performance. Songstress Jean Knight passed away at the age of 80. Folks, that is it for us. Let me thank Randy, Toran. Let me thank Joe as well. I appreciate y'all being on today's show. Be sure to have a great day. Folks, I'll be back tomorrow. First, I'm going to be at North Carolina A&T speaking to the students tomorrow morning. I'm flying out in a couple of hours, but I still will be back in time for tomorrow's show. I also look forward to that. Don't forget, support us in what we do, folks, because your support is critical to us being able to deliver the kind of quality news that is vital. So you can send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $ RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And of course, you can download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Don't forget, you can watch our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week streaming channel on Amazon News. If we go to Amazon Fire and then go to Amazon News, tell Alexa to play news from the Black Star Network. You can watch us on Plex TV, Amazon Freevee, and of course, Amazon Prime Video. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. Folks, that's it. I will see y'all tomorrow. Holla! Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?